Thanks, Jim. Good morning, and we will call this meeting of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee of the Port Orchard City Council to order. Should have received your agenda, and this morning we'll start with some introductions. So I'll start with myself, John Morrissey, City Council member at large and chair of this committee. How about Heidi? You're next.
Okay, Heidi Fenton, City Council member.
Fred?
And I'm Fred Chang. I am also a council member.
Excellent. Mr. Mayor?
Port Orchard Mayor Rob Putansu.
Excellent. Nick?
Nick Bond, City Community Development Director.
Jim?
Jim Fisk, Principal Planner.
Thank you, Jim. Cody?
Cody Clark, Executive Director of the South Kitsap Chamber of Commerce.
Excellent. I have Sam next.
Samantha Smith, POBSA board member.
Excellent. Erica?
And I'm Erica Anderson, the president of the Port Orchard Farmers Market.
Joe?
Joe Morrison, Kitsap EDA.
Nice to see you, Joe. We have more joiners. I see Sarah and Lori. Good morning, Sarah. Oh, still connecting to audio. So we'll let them get connected, and we'll go ahead and move on. The next item on the agenda is discussion of our letter from the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. Nick or Jim, did we want to just run down that internally, or we were going to let them run through that for us? What were your thoughts?
I don't have that letter handy, so if somebody can share it, that would be great.
Let's see here.
And I didn't actually see that item on the agenda. I just had introductions and then stakeholder discussion.
And that's so on further down in the packet in the next.
I see. Okay.
See attachment.
Yeah, if you recall from the last meeting, this letter came up, and so we just wanted to make sure that the committee had eyes on it. That's the reason for the inclusion in the packet.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm remembering now. This letter was sent in as a letter on the 2024 comprehensive plan and just sort of laid out, I think, POBSA's priorities for the city and things they would like reflected in the plan. And so I think some of the issues raised are things that will be directly addressed in the plan. Other things are more operational issues for the city to consider. And so we just wanted to share it with the committee so that you knew what was in there. And if anybody from the POBSA would like to speak to this, we're happy to listen.
We have somebody from POBSA who would like to maybe provide more color to the letter. I know there's multiple of you on the call here this morning.
You know, I can just speak to, the communication piece. We try to do our best. We don't always get information out as timely as we'd like to. And sometimes contractors don't share with us until the 11th hour. Then, it comes across as a reflection on us when, I know the roundabout, we were told they were going to come and pave, the end of April. They didn't, the weather wasn't what it was supposed to be at that time or what they'd hoped. And, the morning the paving equipment showed up, was when we knew they were coming, but we didn't know until, everybody else when the equipment showed up that morning. And, sometimes when a contractor has control of a job site, the Marina Pump Station project's another example. They give us a couple of week outlook. We kind of pushed back on them to no avail. Why did they need to fence that off when they weren't going to work until Monday? And their logic was that we would have paid them, if cars would have been inadvertently parked there this morning, then they wouldn't, they couldn't have worked, and the city would have been charged standby for that time. And it's their active construction site there, and they're in control of it. And we can push back on things. I know Sam and I talked about this quite Friday, a number of things, quite a few times. And we, initially they had a hammerhead movement down there that was worse than the situation that we have, at hand today. It is only for 3 weeks. I said, we try, and we don't always get information out as this timely as we'd like to. And sometimes that's not always in our control. We find out things too at the last minute and then are communicating it.
And maybe this is Corinne. Maybe Sam wants to speak more to it because we're aware. I mean, we really appreciate your working with us, and I know Sam was in communication with you and the city several times last week. But I still think in general, and I don't know the solution to this. Yeah, I know a lot of this is beyond your control and has to do with contractors. But for instance, I just don't know how you should deal with this. But for instance, the general public completely doesn't understand what's going on down there. They thought at one point last week you were tearing out a city park. I mean, if you pay any attention, but a lot of people don't pay attention, or they're naive or whatever. They thought you were tearing out a city park. They don't know that. They think the port's doing that project. They don't know that the city's doing it, just like we know they don't know who's doing the roundabout. They're sure the city's doing it, and they're sure they're doing it for developers, which of course we all know is not true. So I don't know how you deal with that, but just the general public, if there's some way we can communicate better with them, who's doing what and why. And, I mean, the sewer pump station really affects downtown businesses, but if you know anything about it, it's a necessary thing. It's absolutely necessary. It's just that it's taken a long time to get started. It's going to take longer to finish. That's when we talk about communication, it's that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have lots of positions you need to hire, but I wish you could hire a PIO, a marketing communications spokesperson for the city, because we need one.
Yeah, we talked about that at the retreat, and we have a contract individual right now that does what he can for us. And we are pushing information on our website and our Facebook page. But I hope you guys share that with the rest of the world.
Well, I do. I share everything. So,
because we are putting information out. It's just whether where you choose to get your information from.
It's true. It's noticeable. But I think I don't know what the solution is. I just think that's something we all need to ponder more.
Yeah.
I guess maybe what is our solution internally, right? So if POPSA or Sam was going to close down some parking spaces to hold an event, they have to have a permit in for XYZ so that there's a communication involved. What do we hold our contractors to those same standards?
It's their construction site. Yeah, they are communicating with us and following the letter.
So we're talking about this particular parking situation, correct? Around the Marina Lift Station. So if I wanted to hold an event and close that parking, there's a process that the public has to follow, and then there's a comment period and a noticing period to get that done. Do we hold our contractors to that same process?
When we signed the contract with them last year, when we started, there's a schedule to this, and that is their site. They don't know, the communication, we entered into a contract and we've communicated, this is a construction zone down here, and pieces of this will encroach into roadway here on one side and the other as they build different elements. And as the contractor informs us they're about to perform those elements of work, we communicate that as soon as we know that information.
So I don't.
And not only that, but we also went through a permitting process. We had a public hearing before the hearing examiner on the shoreline permits because this work was done in the shoreline. So there was a notice board put up, but that was put up prior to signing the construction contract. So it's a different process than with an event permit application because the permitting takes so much more lead time, and it doesn't happen, 3 months before this. It happens 2 years before construction occurs.
Mhm. I'd like to say that, especially with the businesses down there, I mean, it was still a surprise, even though I did talk to Dennis Ryan. He says that the marina should already knew that that area in the parking lot for the transmitter, not
Generator.
generator should be there. But the other businesses are not getting that information. And if the city knows this is coming, even though it might be a day or two, as soon as the city knows that they're going to block that off, or, because I would think you'd be communicating with them. I mean, I do hear you, Mayor, but I still feel like instead of saying we're going to do a better job of communicating, I feel like we need action and not keep saying we're going to do a better job. We need some more protocol about, okay, let's go down to the business and how do we get the word out? A lot of people don't go to Facebook. We just need better communication, and maybe put up a billboard down there and says, hey, come see this, and this is all the stuff that's going to be happening, and a timeline, so people can, even if it's just in the parking lot over by Josephine's or somewhere, or along the marina, just someplace where people can go and read the information.
Can I say something? So in the last week, I've not just on Facebook, but speaking to other businesses that are downtown, we've been seeing that these businesses are already being affected again by the roundabout and what's going on. And again, like I think the roundabout will be a useful tool when it's done, and that's great. But here we are. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's GoFundMe's for businesses that are being affected by all of this stuff downtown. And again, they had an idea that it was coming, but not really a good idea of when or how. And even more so, the grinding and the paving, can't they do at night? Like that's one thing that I've been really curious about, because it's later afternoon and early morning, the roundabout like mucks up everything right now. And I know that it's temporary. I know that they're grinding and paving, and that's not going to take a ton of time, but it's already doing damage from what it looks like. I mean, Khao Soi has been super busy since they've opened, and every time I've driven by, there's not been very many people in there. It's hard to do anything downtown in the afternoon. What are we doing to help support our businesses that are being affected by this? Because I know that Whiskey Gulch is already seeing it. I know that Nostalgia House is seeing it. I can only imagine the businesses on Bay Street are already seeing it. I can tell you that the businesses in the complex that we're in are seeing it. So that's a twofold question. What are we doing to support those businesses during this, and when stuff like this happens, so that our businesses know ahead of time and can better communicate, and that they can be prepared for it, A, but B, can't they do all the stuff they're doing right now at night? Why aren't they?
I'm gonna start right there, Cody, because I can look outside my window of my office right here and see the flagger. So it affects nobody probably worse than me, other than maybe Madrona Hearing next door and KFC a little further down. But that's a state project, so there's not a whole lot or control that we as a city have on that one, other than getting information out and being reactionary as best we can to let those know, right? So I can speak to that, right? I'm trying to make sure that the things that are within our control,
Sure,
that we can do better at, and that's why I know when it's a city project or something that we're working on, that we can do that. I wish there was a better answer. I'm sure.
We
It's a state highway. We have no
know.
control over the situation.
I understand that. Have we approached the state and asked the state what we can do about that? Like, I feel like if we can advocate for our downtown area, right, which inevitably affects our whole community, by approaching the state and saying, hey, is there a way that we can do this at night? Because I mean, paving and grinding.
Cody, the
happens at night
project's
all the
done,
time.
for all intents and purposes is done. Okay, and I can assure you that everybody that lives on the hill around that is not gonna want to hear the state contractors working all night long while they're trying to sleep. There's a whole bunch of residents on the hill all around that. You know,
And they wouldn't have to contract, right? So
it's
that's
not a good situation for anybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, fortunately through the paving project, and they've still got a punch list of things they're doing, at least they're doing with human flaggers versus the ridiculous cameras that were down, or the traffic cameras that were down there that timed things and was holding up traffic on legs that didn't have any cars in it. I mean, that was the worst this last summer. Personally, I think that contractor managed this project horribly, but it's not our contractor. I don't have any recourse to that contractor. It's the state, and it's a state highway.
And their contract probably said a certain time, and that was the dollar they, you know, if I'm going to work overnight, I'm going to want a premium on that. So I'm sure there are things you can't change that midway. And I promise you, we've advocated at the state level. I know when we were in session, there was a delegation of us that went down there and talked about this as well. So know that we have, right? I wish there was a better answer on that one, which is why I didn't bring that one up, because there's not a whole lot in our control there.
Can I say something?
Fred?
No.
I'm gonna come back to you, Sam, but Fred had his hand up.
Actually, let me go after Sam and Lori.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Sam.
So Cody, on your comments, my husband works heavy construction. The job that they're doing right now, my husband's company was going to bid for and did not. You can get people to work in the evenings. It takes the citizens calling. And actually, that's why we don't have those stupid lights, is because enough citizens called the engineer on the job and said, this is ridiculous. The citizens are the ones that have to blaze the trail. They can work at night, happens all the time. But it isn't, I understand it's not from the city's point of view, but it's people like Pops by the chamber getting together and really advocating. And I did share a phone number to the engineer for that job site, and we blew up her phone because the lights that they have were inadequate for the job that they had.
Yeah.
That job was managed horribly. It's done completely inappropriately. Honestly, it's the laughing stock in Washington. My father-in-law is a huge superintendent of a large company. And Port Orchard's roundabout is kind of a joke right now, not because of the city of Port Orchard, but because of the company overseeing it. And the citizens are the ones that can move jobs forward. So I think if it continues to be an issue, we're going to have to get our citizens to really start contacting the state.
Yeah,
The other part,
no idea that was the thing. So
yeah. Oh yeah. It's a very huge thing. Have you heard of the comment, squeaky wheel gets the grease or whatever? That's what we have to be, is a squeaky
no, for
wheel.
sure.
And that's what happened with those lights, because they were completely inadequate. But as far as downtown, I understand, like I said, my husband's in major construction, bridges, overpasses, all of this stuff. The thing I was not happy with on, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday when I showed up and James from the port showed up, we can both agree to this. If this was known, if this was done, then why were signs written on the back of pizza boxes? Nothing is more infuriating to me as a business owner than to see Port Orchard always look like the red-headed stepchild, which I know sounds horrible, but we can do better for our citizens. We can have proper signage. Literally, there was a sign that said, no parking May 7th to July 22nd on the back of a pizza box. That's not okay. That doesn't show me that they've planned, that they've notified, that they've told. I was told that the generator wasn't going to be put in place until probably October, because why would we be doing events downtown? Why would we be, Night Market completely has to switch its location. Mosquito Fleet, which we put a lot of effort into, is going to be drastically affected. I understand that this was part of the plan, but there's also a timeline with any construction job. So I think that's my biggest thing is, what are we telling our citizens when all they deserve is handwritten signs or spray painted signs or lack of proper information? I have no problem spreading information when I get it, and advocating, because I am in the city of Port Orchard because it's my home. But it's also embarrassing when I put all this work, we put all this work into beautifying downtown, making it look so nice. But then the best we can do for our citizens is janky signs and proper bad communication from the construction company. So I get that they have the right to start whenever, but they also, I believe in the contract, have to give proper notice. I asked my husband, he's like, "You're joking." And I showed him the signs. He goes, "No, that's not how a normal company would do it. They would go and talk to the businesses. They would set up signage that was appropriate, just like I have to set up signage when I do an event. There's certain rules that I have to do for the city to do my signage." So that's what, honestly, I've heard a lot. We become the public hub downtown. Everybody thinks that we are this city hall. And I'm like, well, go and talk to city hall. And it's detouring. You can't get to city hall right now. So I have no problem spreading the information when I get the correct information.
Thank you, Sam. Lori?
We don't mean to attack you or ask you to explain yourself. What we're looking for is a way to go forward and have a way to jump into action when things that we didn't expect happen to us. So yeah, good communication, and we will put out the communication. I would like to remind people that, you know, in the city, 2 years is nothing to you, but I didn't live here 2 years ago, so I don't know anything about what happened 2 years ago. There's a lot of people coming to the area who are new at this, and, you know, stuff is happening and it's like, what? So please remember that also some of us have bad memories, and you could have told me 2 years ago and I would have forgotten. Remember that you have to keep on message. Don't assume that people already know or that they're familiar with the process, because they could honestly not know, and they can have, you know, have had bad information or forget what the process is. So yeah, communication from going forward is what we need.
Thank you. And before I recognize Fred here,
John,
just
and
a
John,
comment
if
that,
I can up our effort with Josh and on our, you know, we've got a ton of projects between City Hall, Marina Pump Station. We've got a contractor working out at McCormick Woods with road construction going on there related to a well project. We've got the road diet in front of the middle school, and we just awarded the roundabout project on Bethel too. So there's tons going on, you know, and we're, you know, not to make excuses, we should have 4 engineers on staff and we've got 2. And so we're juggling a lot of balls right now, but you know, I can put Josh on point to make sure we're getting, you know, construction timelines and you know, upping our Facebook messaging out there. And it's going to be on our webpage, and our Facebook is our, you know, is how we can reach the most people though.
and it, you know, to kind of circle back, council gave mayor our priorities for the year, and PIO is on that list, right? So we don't just snap our fingers and it gets done. He hasn't even had a full month with that list yet. So you know, there's planning, we're building that out, we're going to get there. And so when we have a full-time person, or we're not even going all full-time, I don't think, right at first, but that will be their only job. And so they'll be able to spend enough time to get this right and make this better, because I do believe that both organizations, the city, I saw Pobs taking a little bit on the chin on some threads on social media as well, that the two of us need to be better at communicating back and forth, getting some of this information out. So it has gotten better. I will give the city credit. I was giving some feedback that we could be better, and I've already seen us step up our game in the last 60 days compared to what it had been before then. So Fred.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that we actually need a better enumeration of a communication plan. For example, who is a good designated contact? What is a good place to put the information? I think Rob is correct. We do have a website. It's not as ideal, But in addition to putting information on the website and Facebook, and Rob, Facebook is not a good way to get information to people. It's not like you send an email to their inbox. It is like another website where people go and look. But in order to push information, we actually need to work on our email lists and see if we can do anything about text alerts. But what I'm also thinking is that we need kind of a flow chart, and I was going to draft one and maybe get input from, I know we can't do it with 16 people, but just sort of a basic idea of how the information goes. And what would actually be helpful is after I get this sort of rough flow chart, if you tell me what you're expecting and what you need, I think together we might have a better plan if we can know like who to expect to get the information from. And is there a better way to get it out there?
John?
I'm going to go to Erica. She's had her hand up, and then I'll come to Corinne. Erica?
I'm just going to tag right along with this communication thing. A lot of different community groups that work with my organization, like through WSU Extension and whatnot, they'll send us full-on media packages through email. It's really easy to have an email chain with all of our public groups that are here today, where then we can put that information out in our newsletters, out into our own email groups and whatnot. And all the same information is going to this, larger audience. And it's not a whole lot of extra work because you're just sending it out in one email and then it doesn't put us where we're responsible to go out and watch your Facebook constantly looking for that information to share into our groups. It just makes it easier for us to advocate for the city and get that information out into the public for you.
Thank you. Corinne?
Well, as Rob pointed out, there's all kinds of construction, and we all know that we have years of it still downtown. So I think there's lots of opportunities for all the organizations in the city and the lead to communicate better. With the street raising and the event center and the new bank, it's going to be a long haul. So I guess, I feel like instead of, and it sounds like this is what you've talked about at the retreat and a potential PIO and upping your social media. But I think if there could be a better plan going forward as each of these things come up, or we know they're in the hopper. And I mean, I hate to mention this, but because it's one of the things I did not want to do as POBSA president is walk around from place to place to place. But I wish there could be more of that going on with all of us, including city and city council people. I mean, one-on-one conversations with people goes a long ways, because then they're going to hopefully transmit correct information instead of incorrect. But I know that's a lot to ask everybody.
No, I agree. I was thinking about that too, Corinne, that if I got information, I would be more than happy to be bopped down to the different businesses and explain things.
People go out when they're candidates willingly or unwillingly to doorbell. I just feel like if there was some better personal one-on-one way to meet with people, whether it's, honestly, homeowners groups at McCormick Woods, I don't know. And I know, I mean, Rob is really good at going out and doing, state of the city. In fact, he's doing it for POBSA this week. That's this week, right? Yeah, Thursday. So, but if there could just be a little bit more of that.
Sarah?
I just think that look at the group that we have here and how everybody is from a different area and everybody has a different group. Well, we're talking about it right now. So I think that being a part of this group is part of our responsibility to tell the people the information. So if we get the information on a meeting like this, we should all be able to be responsible in passing that on. It's not one person.
Yes, no, I think so. And I think some of that is how we aggregate that internally at the city to get that out, right? And some of that with Fred's talking about that flow, understanding who would take that information and get it out there. So it's proactive versus being reactionary. And so I think we have to look at that and see what we can do. I like the idea to sign up for email. I still get weekly emails on road closures in Bremerton for my time when I worked in downtown Bremerton and things like that. So I'm sure there are options we can look at. So, and then to piggyback on Corinne's, I think that kind of goes back to another one of your items on your list. I kind of want to just focus on communication, but I think working towards a Main Street program in Port Orchard and having that person in your downtown area to be able to be that person that you're talking about and bebop to the businesses and make sure that there is that, hey, you saw that email, right? There's parking changes coming next week. Things like that would make a huge difference to the business owners.
That's a big step for us. We want to do it, but that's something we're going to need a lot of support from, I don't know, the city, the chamber. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But you know, an advantage is that we do have you, John, and you've been through that process.
Yes. So, I would like to have a lady by the name of Janelle McCoy come and speak to your board, and I'll follow up with Monica and you to get that organized real soon, because I think that would help. But on communication, so the second item, I kind of want to start touching base on talks about the road elevation plan, and I think they're at a point where that contract will be awarded this fall, Mayor? Or am I a year early?
You're a year early. You're talking
Okay.
about we're in design right now with our engineer on Bay Street. We're probably not going to see the first set of plans until the fall, which are going to be like a low-level design, which then we meet with WashDOT on, because WashDOT has to approve all the geometry and the design before we can complete the design. And so, you know, we may see some plans this fall, but construction is probably late 2025, early 2026.
Yeah. And on that note, I know Heidi, I've talked to you about this before, and I saw it again this morning in an email. And you should be able to answer this question when people ask you about it, is that that crossing, those flashing crossing signs that haven't worked for years, that they're not, the state isn't going to repair them. Okay. And part of our plan in these roadway improvements is for us to improve those crossings, but that's a couple years out. So
right. And that's what I say. They're not, because you said they're not gonna get the flashing lights won't get fixed.
The wires in the ground, it would involve tearing up the entire roadway to repair that crossing in that fashion, and the state's not willing to do that. So
yeah, but I do have to still report back, because there are people that feel the crosswalk is unsafe, especially at night. And then there is, I cross it all the time, and I think for the most part people, they do see you even if you don't have a flag, but sometimes the flags are on one end and not at the other end, and so I see the frustration though with people.
So the answer is, though, Heidi, we recognize that it's in the designs that we're doing, and we're going to make improvements, but nothing's going to happen in the short run with that, though.
No, not until a couple of years, it sounds like, when you redo the road or raise up the road. Yes.
Heidi, are you just talking about the lights at Frederick?
Yes.
The recessed flashing lights that the state don't function, and they haven't functioned for years.
Could we ask them to yank them out?
Well, do you want the road torn up?
I mean, if they took something down so people know that it's not working, because there is an.
But Fred, you would have to cut the road up and have a construction project. They're not harming anything. They'll get addressed when we rebuild the road.
They can't cut the poles off or something?
They're not on poles. They're embedded in the street.
But there are still poles that people think they can press, or maybe not. I don't know.
There's no activation button. They were motion censored.
So I want to kind of bring this back to that particular project, and specifically for the chamber. I guess all of our partners on here today, because it's going to affect all of you. and being keyed in on the presentations, and we will use this committee to tell you when to be keyed in on that. That's our opportunity to have you have input on needed communication timelines, right? When we see the design and we start going out, and we need to know when those impacts are going to have on your businesses and how we can help mitigate that in our comment period to the state to get that done. That's when we need to engage and create our communication plan for what you need from us as the city to make sure that we are limiting the impact to the best of our abilities. There's a point where you can't limit it all. I will say the Main Street Association in Port Townsend did an amazing job working with their membership when they had to redo. I can't remember if their main drag there is Front Street or Water Street. I get it mixed up every time, but just before COVID, they had to completely redo that entire street. And when can they do that? In the summer. When does Port Townsend make all their money? During the tourism season in the summer. So they just had to, and it really took a great partnership, and that's what I want to make sure that we are setting up now for that success, because you're 100% right in your comment in this letter that we have to get this right. So be thinking about your needs from us and what that communication might need to look like, so that we can get ahead of that, so that we can plan that, or any pinch points you might see, dates in the timeline, all those types of things, so that we can provide that feedback this fall when we see those designs. But I'll make sure that we let you know when that time frame comes. Questions or comments on that? Okay. Item 3, request and support a friendlier communicative response from the city staff to existing business, potential new business developers and contractors. That one might need a little color here for us to better understand what it is Hobbs is asking for. Who? Don't all jump in at the same time.
Corinne, I think that's best if you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, you had the letter on the screen, but we wrote that letter a couple of months ago. I mean, really just everything we're already talking about, and maybe Nick can help me out here a little bit. But there was discussion about, I'll use the barbershop as an example, how long it took for that permit to come through. And I don't remember the terminology or the phrases, but
I can speak to that one if you'd like.
Yeah,
so
please do, Nick.
So when we revamped our zoning in 2017, we had a lot of discussion about whether service businesses should be located downtown. And as a way to allow but discourage service businesses, the city council at the time decided that services should be a conditional use permit, which means there's a public hearing and additional criteria before you approve those, because they didn't want prime downtown shop fronts occupied by low traffic businesses, essentially. And so when you want to have an accounting office, or you want to have a bail bond, or you want to have a barber shop, you have to go through an additional layer of permitting to locate downtown, because the emphasis of the zone is for retail and restaurants, because that generates a higher level of traffic and creates synergy downtown. And so the current policy is that you have to get a conditional use permit, which goes to the hearing examiner. It's like a 90 to 120 day process if you want a service business in the main portion of downtown, I think from Orchard Street over to Harrison. And if that policy needs to change, that's something that has to come from the city council. But I think that we would then have to either say we're going to permit these things outright, or just not allow them because it's not what we want downtown. And council wanted to retain the flexibility while not making it as easy for those businesses to locate downtown. That was the directive in 2017.
Okay.
And it was primarily around the bail bondsman, but these are categorized in what's called SIC codes. in these services. So I think there's businesses like a barber shop that we do want downtown, but they're lumped in this bucket. And I mean, it requires this lengthier process to get that conditional use permit.
Well, it'd be great if you could define that more. I mean, I haven't there has hardly been a time I've walked by that barber shop, there isn't somebody in that chair. And I've been walking by there a lot lately. So if there's just, yeah, he's booked up 2 weeks out. That's what Steve was just telling me. So anyways, if there just could be a better separation of types of businesses, because and then unfortunately there's retail shops that hardly ever get anybody in there. There's a few of those. So it's, it's apples and oranges. So
it seems I would rather have a low traffic service place like a barber than an empty storefront. So one of the things that could be focused into the permitting process is how many empty storefronts we have. And we do have at least one I know of right across the street from the barber shop. So which is better, not have a low traffic service or an empty storefront which gets none?
I don't think we want any storefronts. It's just that we have to follow our code when it comes to through the process to get an occupancy permit for a building. And our code purposefully wants to incent retail.
I heard you, I understand that, but who wrote the code? Write the code to include the number of empty storefronts as part of.
That's not practical.
Yeah.
That's not practical, Lori.
Yeah,
All
I don't
right.
know that we can get
All
that
right,
in.
just
Yeah,
a suggestion.
I like just an idea. Gary, you had your hand up for a minute?
Well, just wanted to point out that some of this is going to be growing pains. The city has to decide what it wants to be. There was never a shortage of comments from people who would come across the bay to Port Orchard and didn't find there a reason to come back to Port Orchard. And a retail solution and restaurants is the kind of thing that people will come to town for. Some salons, maybe a barber shop now and then, but you really want the kind of businesses that, like John pointed out, that creates, or maybe Rob pointed out, creates a synergy that encourages more traffic throughout the town. And bail bonds is a perfect example of that. They have to be near the courthouse, but they were taking up prime real estate in downtown Port Orchard, and they're never in the office. No customers come there or do anything. So, you have to encourage the kind of businesses that you want there. And until those businesses decide that's where they want to be, you're going to deal with some of this. But
yeah, and
we just
some of it's just a tricky process, right? I know there's a internet cafe or just a cafe, the cat cafe that was in the county that had the same issues, right? Not that anybody didn't want it, it just sometimes your business falls within this tricky category that it might take an extra little bit of time to get you where you need to be. So okay, and then I think the last item in communication I'd like to kind of end our time on today. Would we like to see better branding and promotion of the city by the city, possibly a tagline and collaborative efforts to promote our downtown?
yes.
Did you guys have any, is there further color beyond that? Sorry.
I think I guess for POPSPA and a lot of businesses, and I guess I'm going to say I'm one of those anchor businesses, or I have anchor businesses downtown. I'm open 7 days a week. I employ 26 people. I work my butt off to get people to come to downtown Port Orchard. Though I could move to Gig Harbor, Pauls, but that's not my hometown. But I also want to feel like I'm on the same plane level of some of these other towns. And so for us, at least as POPSPA, we are really changing our thought process this year. It's really the hardest year ever to start new events. But what we're really going for is what we have in our assets, which is the beautiful bay. So a lot of our events are centered around what we are known for. And that's what Port Orchard is known for, is you can walk along the water, this path that we're going to be doing. Though I know some people in the community aren't thrilled with it. I'm like, what other town can you walk along the water like you're going to be able to in Port Orchard? What other town can you shop on businesses right on the water, look out the water? So our whole thing is we're going to be hopefully doing the Christmas event, Holiday on the Bay. We're doing the Maritime Festival. We just did Ladies Night. The theme was Anchors Away. So we're just really trying to figure out what makes Port Orchard unique. We know what makes Fallsville unique. I think Bremerton's still figuring it out. I think Gig Harbor really has a great maritime look, but we kind of want that for Port Orchard, is that cohesiveness and that synergy, and where it's kind of all level playing. Because right now we're just, and Corinne, please piggyback on this. I know what I think in my head. It's hard for me to get it out sometimes, but we just, for me, I want to feel like I'm in a city that's working just as hard as I am. And I know that I believe that the city wants to, and I'm excited to work with Chamber and other organizations this year to really help elevate what we're doing. But for me, branding is huge with any good city development, and also with getting those good retailers downtown. Because to be honest, looking out my window and feeling the impacts of everything, I hope in 3 years, I'm still here when all of this, well, 5 years, 8 years, when all the construction's done. So what can we do as a community to support that in the meantime while people are struggling through? So, Corinne?
Well, I know I spoke to this before in our last meeting or the meeting before, because when I was at the Chamber, and this is a long time ago, we did try to make an effort, and it, for lots of reasons, mostly political, if it fell on its face, but maybe it's time to try that again. And when we were trying that at the Chamber, and I might even share this with you, Cody. I mean, it was a multi-organization effort. So I know that's just more work for everybody, but I think it'd be great if we could all join together again. And because as Sam said, we are definitely trying to make that effort this year at POBSA. We've really shook things up internally in the way we do things, but it's still a work in progress. So, you know, again, I mean, I'm glad you're looking at a PIO, because, and I know you've got, someone contracted to do social media, but if we had somebody, more people we could work with at the city and then the Chamber, and join together to really look harder at branding. I mean, I guess we're telling you we're already going the Maritime Nautical. I mean, we've made that decision, but it'd be better if it was all unified.
Yeah, cohesive across all landscapes.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think we have an opportunity this summer and fall to possibly make that a priority for the city, and talk about in that budgeting process. Maybe the city can help with that process.
Yeah, I mean, we already have, Concerts by the Bay. When we were discussing a name for the new evolved Christmas event, we settled on Holiday on the Bay because we have been using that phrase for kind of a shopping promotion. I mean, we are on the Bay, we're maritime. So the more we can take advantage of that and work with that.
I mean, we just put up all of the signs that are going to be down there are going to have anchors on them, like throughout the town, any of our events. It would be kind of cool. What if we added an anchor to the city of Port Orchard? Just something, a symbol, something that ties everybody together, even if it's something small.
Yeah.
And start off with something kind of small, like, a big old anchor down there, and go from there.
Joe?
I'll cede my time to Nick, actually. Then
Okay.
I'll follow up after Nick.
Okay,
Well,
Nick.
I just wanted to mention, we went through the branding exercise in 2014 and came up with the city logo, which uses a maritime font. It shows like the wave action in the logo. So I think in terms of the city as a whole, we've incorporated that sort of theme into our mark for the city. But in terms of additional marketing, I think that is more something that would be led by either the downtown organization or POBSA that is like a Main Streets organization that would focus this on downtown and sort of have its own downtown branding distinct from the city as a whole.
Joe, did you have follow-up?
Yeah, I'll follow up. I think what's interesting about this letter is that I think a lot of the challenges that POBSA has pointed out will be really solved with the PIO external engagement person and to ruin John and Rob's day and maybe Heidi's and Fred's. You're a growing city that's that grew really fast. And that might, I'm gonna get in trouble. That might need to be a full-time person. There's a lot of need. DCD has the need to reach out to its stakeholders effectively when they're trying to do things like comp plan engagements, when there's public events, when there's issues related to crime, and this person who lives at City Hall can be brought into all these different situations and ad hoc meetings and get the word out and manage the different communications channels. I'm not even sure if Bremerton has a PIO, but you know, it's one of the areas that I see places not invest in, and you might be well served by it. You might just have happier citizens and more engaged downtown businesses.
You know, Joe, the conversation was a 20-hour position in this employment market right now. I don't think I could attract somebody that would do this work for 20 hours a week for us. So I think your remarks could be spot on. If we're going to do this and be successful at it, it's got to probably be all in or not at all.
Yeah. Any other comments on that?
Well, I know we don't have a PIO, but I'm going to put a little spotlight out that there's another beautification day happening downtown on the 19th. So if you have any questions, let me know. Or come help.
Thank you, Sarah, for organizing that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
John, are you done with this portion?
I am. So I don't want to go into any of the others because otherwise we'd be here all day. So that isn't my.
I have one item I just like because I don't have another committee to take this to.
Please.
And I've got some data. It's not necessarily complete, but you got a letter from the council did about, you know, we've got 4 events that are grandfathered and that the city provides the traffic control and, you know, augments the police department for those events. And they're the bigger events. It's the cruise, the car show, Saints Car Show. It's Chimes and Lights. It's the parade, and it is the 4th of July. In total, Public Works alone, the city spends $30,000 on those 4 events. More than half of that is the Saints Car Show that brings 7,000 to 10,000 people on a sunny day, and no less than 5,000 if the weather's suspect. You know, the Mustang Car Show wants to be treated like those other events. I think that's a slippery slope myself, but I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about that. Eric Warden shared with me this morning. It's just so much more efficient for the private sector to do this than, you know, and I didn't even give you that was just the Public Works numbers. Then you factor in our police, and it's real money. The Cradle to Grave, the senior parade, they've contracted with the company to do this for them for $3,500. So I just, you know, I would recommend we push back on that letter, but it's ultimately your guys' call. And if we do it for this one event, you know, everybody's going to line up and want the city to provide for all of their traffic control. And I don't know that that's the best use of our limited resources. And welcome your thoughts.
I would just start by saying, I don't know that any council member is actually advocating for adding Mustangs to that grandfathered group. I mean, I think we appreciate what they do and we like the event, but when you talk about the costs, I don't know that anyone wants to sponsor or, I mean, I don't know. So.
Can I speak to that? Oh.
Go ahead.
With the Mustang show, I have to be 110% completely transparent. It actually is an event I'm probably closing for this year. Mustangs is very limited. It's one demographic, Ford Mustangs. Last year, the parking lot behind Josephine's in the public market had 12 cars out of 72 spaces. I understand that they're building their event back up, but I think when you really do an event that's very limited on attendees, That is a very slippery slope. In my opinion, the Christmas one and the cruise are, in my opinion, the two most important, because the cruise has been known, and it has proven itself, and it does get people down here, and it is what Port Orchard is known for. The Christmas event is an all community event, any age, any demographic, anything. The Mustangs is very limited, and it's just like for me to say, I want to close down all of downtown for a night market, or maybe a Jeep event or something. When you're talking about such a narrow demographic, I think it's a very slippery slope financially. And again, if we're talking about we need a PR person at the city, I would honestly rather see that money go to there. I understand the 4 events that are already there. The 4th of July is actually the 6th of July this year, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But that's just my opinion with events.
You know, Sam, could I use your words a bit in my, because I think I know where I'm going with this response, because we owe them a response. That's why I brought this up. I encouraged them last year because they want to break their event up into areas by the vintage of the car, the style of the car. And I really encouraged them to consolidate their event because it isn't that large. And they really took offense to that. And it was unfortunate. The conversation didn't go better. But would it be appropriate for me to say that the merchants would appreciate them consolidating their event? Because here's the other challenge that they're going to have is this is on Sunday. And the new dynamic is that Kitsap Transit now is operating on Sunday. And so it'll be even more challenging for them to be able to be in multiple parking lots because we've got buses traveling through their event. And so it won't be an easy traffic control challenge that they have.
I'll be 100% honest. I always say with events in downtown, I invest a lot of money in downtown between the 2 buildings, my employees, so on and so forth. And whenever an event comes downtown, I feel like they're coming into my home, which I want to be a good hostess. But I also think that there's some events that are appropriate for downtown and some that are not. Mustangs, I'm also a huge car person. My parents are presidents of a local car club. I know how car shows work really, really well. I've been to them my whole life, whether I wanted to or not. And when you limit a demographic and you spread it out like they do, where they go 50s, 60s, 70s, best 90s, it really affects an event. I think their event would be held really well at South Kitsap High School, where you have different levels that you could be parking your cars at and stuff. For me as a business owner, last year, my numbers were under from that event, and I brought in extra staff. I was actually out of town, and it was actually really devastating. So we're talking about having our company-wide summer event on that day. I really feel like when any event comes and takes over all of our homes, and when I say that, I say as merchants, because we are the ones that are keeping it afloat. I really feel like merchants' input should be really valued. Not only, I mean, I make sure I have clean restrooms. I make sure my buildings are clean. I make sure my parking lots are clean. I'm not saying all merchants do that downtown, but this is my business. It's definitely, I don't have a hobby business downtown. And some businesses, I will be honest, do. They decide they're going to open Saturday from 3 to 6. I'm like, nope, open Monday through Sunday, whatever, my 10 to 9 or 10 to 6. So I would love if you used my words. I love them. I've always supported them. It's not about their event. It's about the way that they do their event and how much space they took over and how much footprint. So yes, and Corinne, you can probably speak to that because we've had a lot of merchants talk about this.
Yeah, we haven't, as a board, made a statement about that, but we did discuss the Mustangs a couple of times since last summer. Restaurants are always, get a little more business when there's stuff like that. But generally speaking, they took up the parking lot and there wasn't much to show for it. So, yeah, so I think, I think you could generally say that a lot of the downtown merchants they're reluctant to have an event that isn't really going to, bring a lot of people downtown.
How about I try to keep it a little more positive? It would be greatly appreciated by the Merchants Association if the event was consolidated into a tighter space.
Sure.
Erica, you have your hand up.
Just going to go along with that. A group of us were meeting just last weekend talking about how to circumvent shutting down that whole side on the waterfront last week for all of our events and make sure that the buses can still come through even for our bigger grandfathered in events. So it doesn't make sense that we would take a specific group. And at this point, our city can't handle that. We don't have the parking because we're in a construction time and all those things. It just doesn't make sense, and it will further hurt the businesses and groups and events that are down there and already vetted.
All right. Any other feedback for the mayor on that? Okay. Fred, anything from you? Oh,
No, I was just wondering what Erica has on her shoulder. Is that a cat?
no, that,
No, it's a small child.
yeah. Nick. Oh, you're
I
muted.
just had one good of the order announcement. I wanted to let you know about a grant application that we submitted on Friday. I know that Joe Morrison is aware of this through KEDA, but at the Port Orchard Industrial Park, the city owns about 57 acres of land. And so we submitted this application 2 years ago. There's only about $2 million in grant funding per cycle, and the minimum award is $200,000. The maximum is $500,000. So between 4 and 10 projects get funded every 2 years. So we're basically requesting funding to prepare the studies and the engineering design to subdivide city-owned property. And the hope is that we would create the pads that the city needs for its use, as well as surplus industrial pads that could be sold off for future development. And so I just wanted the committee to be aware of this effort, and hopefully we'll get funding. But if not, we can apply again in 2 years, given the limited resources statewide. And I know that KEDA right now is working on an industrial lands analysis because of the shortage of industrial pads throughout all of Kitsap County. And so we have some available land, and this is a pretty minor project for our team to take on if we were to be successful in getting funding and prepare the subdivision. Nothing commits us to selling the lots unless council decides to do that, but just wanted to share this for everyone's information.
Boy, that looks great, Nick. Great job with your application. My fingers are really crossed for you.
Nick, are you going to share that potentially with the rest of council, or is that something you generally would do once we?
Yeah, in our department reports, we'll make the announcement on Tuesday.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Heidi, you have anything for good of the order?
No, I like what everybody's input. So yeah, sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no other good of the order, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time today. We appreciate it. Thank you for investing in your community.
Thanks.
Thank you.